Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 has already a number of confirmed new weapons. These are obviously meant to be used against the enhanced, returning and debuting enemies. So let's dive deep into these, plus which weapons we should expect to be altered or simply be confirmed to return in future trailers and the final game in 2022.
Breath of the Wild has, by far, the greatest variety of weapons in any game in the Zelda series. Blades, spears, bows, arrows, the elemental weapons, even shields that can deal damage like the Lynel gear. Based on the E3 2021 trailer for the game's upcoming sequel, it's clear that as well as recycling many of the weapons and assets from the previous game, the Zelda team plan to introduce new weapons to Hyrule, as you'd expect from a full-blown sequel. Though the game started out as an expansion, it's now a full sequel, penned to release a full 5 years after the original. The most noticeable new weapon we see in the sequel trailer is the Dragon's Head Flamethrower, which seems to be attached to the shield on Link's left arm, the arm unaffected by the strange green energy.
It is a weapon, but also a shield, which might have been obtained from this pedestal before this fight, and be an early weapon on the ground, which introduces us to the concept of tools of combined offensive and defensive capabilities. I don't really know if they got the idea from Pen Pineapple Apple Pen, but it has to be said that this bizarre phenomenon took Japan by storm around the same time the Zelda team decided to turn DLC-free ideas into a sequel of combinations, and then specifically the weapons that we'll find and obtain in the sky and underground sections of Hyrule.
Breath of the Wild of course featured a set of incredible ancient Sheikah weapons, which many people want to see make a return in the sequel. We've seen awesome fan concepts of weapons like a Sheikah beam gun, but with the Sheikah technology apparently absent from Hyrule this time around, what kind of weapons can we expect to see? Based on Link's attire, it's possible that this clip takes place early on in the game, perhaps still underground as in the reveal trailer, though there's no way to confirm this. The Flamethrower is obviously somewhat connected to the Zonai, from both the design of the dragon's head and the glowing green energy within it. So if we see one Zonai weapon in the trailer, who's to say that there aren't more found in the game, also powered by this strange green energy? Found not only underground, but somewhere on the surface or even in the skies. Much of Breath of the Wild's combat and puzzle solving was based on its elements system. Obviously, this dragon's head spews fire, but we perhaps might also see electrical or ice variants of this type of weapon, similar to the elemental blades, rods and arrows in the original game.
If there's one thing Breath of the Wild taught us, then it is that the Zelda team prefers to categorize weapons to different races. In Breath of the Wild we found Hylian, Zora, Goron, Gerudo, Rito, Sheikah, Monster or Demon, and ancient Sheikah weapons and shields. For the sequel though, it is more likely now than after the 2019 reveal that the ancient Sheikah category with its strong but vulnerable weapons are gone. It is understandable that ancient Sheikah weaponry was limited to one game and appears already to be replaced by stone and green spirit or luminous stone's energy powered weapons. The possibilities are many, and we haven't even asked the big questions, like how durable will these stone weapons be? Do they need to be fueled like the Master Cycle Zero? And can we craft our own combo weapons? Based on the two teasers, we see combos of surface clothing and weapons. Thus, it really wouldn't surprise us if at least some of these are a way to not fill up your inventory with weapons and shields, and instead place these combined attack and defensive tools into their own inventory screen, adding another one besides weapons, shields and bows.
But one of the most interesting things about the Flamethrower is that it doesn't really seem to match the shield. The shield looks to be a traveller's shield or something similar, while the dragon's head is carved from ancient stone. We can assume that the two probably aren't designed to be together, but that the Flamethrower has been attached to the shield, the two items combined. So could this be a possible answer to the weapon durability controversy? Or is it just a new class of weapon which cannot be combined or altered in any way? Another question regarding the Flamethrower is how it will be powered. Elemental weapons in the original game have a small cooldown after using their power, so perhaps this is something that the Dragon's Head will share. Again, the E3 2021 trailer just raised more questions than it gave us answers, and until we see an extended trailer or gameplay, this Flamethrower is likely to remain a mystery. But what about swords, spears and bows? We saw Link with what looked like a new sword up in the Sky Islands, but it's hard to make out much detail.
Are these exclusively found in the sky like the ancient Sheikah weapons for the most part were hidden in underground Sheikah shrines in Breath of the Wild? And will they be entirely made out of stone? After all, ancient Sheikah weapons were due to their non-metallic and non-wood nature the only weapon category safe to use both during thunder and in Elden's inhumane heat. So should we assume that much like the ruins from the unknown past, that they will all be out of stone and powered with some dark sorcery equivalent to the beam or energy which made up the ancient Sheikah weapons? It is entirely possible, and hopefully it will be far more durable, as pretty much all kinds of Sheikah weapons, both ancient and modern, were notoriously vulnerable in Breath of the Wild. Hopefully it will be the opposite with distant past weapons, which will be more sought out due to their stone quality, durability and rarity, as they are only found underground, which might be the game's big level gap after we first escape from it, and the sky, and maybe one special shop somewhere in Hyrule. My bet is somewhere in Faron, the most underused of the inhabited provinces in open-air Hyrule.
Breath of the Wild also featured different weapon classes themed after the world's various races. We've already seen the return of Hylian class gear like the Traveler's Shield, Sword and Bow, so perhaps we'll also see the return of Zora, Goron, Rito, Gerudo, even contemporary Sheikah gear, as well as the obvious monster equipment. The teaser shows the new styled bokoblins wielding the same boko bows and spears seen in the original game, confirming the return of the most basic class of enemy equipment. But this doesn't mean that we won't see new monster weapons. The original game had the bokoblins' wooden bats, moblin clubs, Lizalfos bows and so on, with the highest tier being Lynel gear, savage, brutally powerful equipment won from slain Lynels.
It wouldn't surprise me if we see new, even more powerful enemies of Malice-infused types like we saw in Age of Calamity, with completely new weapons thanks to Ganondorf's return to the throne. Then we have the Hylian Weapons. Due to the lack of any Hylian blacksmiths or standing military after the Great Calamity, the Hylian weaponry was scattered around the world in chests, hands of marauding monsters, Hyrule Castle, and so on. With this in mind, we should keep our expectations of new Hylian weapons to a minimum, and instead hope for crafting or combination options of the returning ones, all to make them stronger and more durable, whilst the Zelda team introduces ancient Hylian weaponry to the mix. Also, as of the second teaser, we still have no signs of underwater gameplay in the sequel. Though if it is revealed in later trailers and gameplay, then we can assume that new Zora weapons specialized for underwater combat will be introduced, and that we could see the return of the hookshot or dual clawshot, both excellent underwater items. Now what remains? Well, the great mystery of the role of Kakariko and Yiga Sheikah in the sequel. The weapons weren't exactly the best, most durable or even useful in the game. Now with the ancient equivalent likely gone, new Sheikah and Yiga weapons are a must. Hopefully Robbie can deliver a new line of Sheikah weapons when his original factory of ancient weapons could be out of business. As for the Yiga, they need to step up their weapons game to stand any chance against the whooping that awaits from the hero of Hyrule and his new green powerful arm from the distant past. And since we have reached the personal arsenal of the hero, yes, the arm is likely to be a weapon. And no, we don't know if it will contain bombs like the bomb runes we had in Breath of the Wild Sheikah Slate. So regular bombs could be another weapon to add to the list of new weapons. One possibility that I would absolutely love to see explored in the sequel with its abundance of malice is Malice Weapons. Powerful weapons that both drain our health and deal excessive amounts of damage. Though this is just a potential idea, it would still be awesome to have the opposing powers of green and red in our arsenal, at least until we get back our Master Sword.
Of course, the Blade of Evil's Bane makes its return as we see it in both teasers for the game. Though, in the recent trailer, it's heavily implied that Link either loses it underground when Zelda falls, or it's perhaps even attacked by Malice, as seen in this shot here. Or, it's confiscated by Ganon as punishment for Link and Zelda.
Bring light to my lair? You must die!
The fate of Hyrule's most famous blade remains unclear. It could be with Ganondorf below Hyrule or in the floating castle, or even with Zelda deep underground. I'm always up for seeing the Master Sword going even further beyond, like in A Link to the Past or A Link Between Worlds where it's able to be upgraded.
Also that it can be at its best when it is pulled once more against the resurrected King of Evil, or just so it can match the color of Zelda's other divine weapons and short hair of light, or if you prefer, bling. Gold, a color shining so bright that it will attract all kinds of enemies and overworld bosses, returning altered and debuting ones, much more than even the mysterious yellow broomstick on this golem in the sky. And I think that is the perfect moment to thank Zeltik for joining. But here's a little secret, we got something bigger planned together soon enough, so stay tuned. But for now, please leave a like, subscribe to both of our channels with notification bells on if you haven't already, all to not miss our great upcoming Zelda and Breath of the Wild 2 videos. As always, a big thanks goes to all my patreon.com/commonrealm patrons, and in particular to royal producer Charles Shash. You rock. And please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.